McLaren did not just win in Hungary. They crushed the field so completely that one uncomfortable question immediately took over the paddock. How did Lando Norris turn one of Formula One's most demanding races into a display of total control, and why is the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile now being linked with an investigation into the team behind that dominance? Because this was not simply about speed. It was about the size of the advantage, the timing of the performance, and the possibility that one hidden detail changed everything. A detail that could affect Norris, McLaren, and the entire championship battle. But the most important clue was not the victory itself. It was what happened around it, what rival teams may have noticed, and why the questions only became louder after the checkered flag. By the end, the real reason this win attracted so much attention will become clear. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this victory created so much noise, you first have to understand what Hungary normally does to a Formula One car. The Hungaroring is not a place where drivers can simply rely on raw power. It is narrow, relentless, and packed with corners that arrive almost before the previous one has finished. There is very little time to breathe, very little room to recover, and almost no chance to hide a weakness. A car that struggles with balance will expose itself immediately. A driver who overheats the tires will feel the race slipping away, lap by lap. And a team that makes even one poor strategic decision can lose control of the entire afternoon. That is what made McLaren's performance feel so significant. Lando Norris did not appear to be fighting the circuit in the way many drivers usually do. The car looked settled. The pace looked repeatable. And the longer the race continued, the more the result began to feel less like a lucky opportunity, and more like a warning to everyone else. But here is where the story becomes more complicated. Dominance in Formula One is never judged only by the final position. Rival teams study where the time is being gained, how the tires are being protected, how the car behaves through different corners, and whether that advantage makes sense compared with previous races. Think of it like watching someone finish a difficult exam far earlier than everyone else. Finishing first is impressive. Finishing first while making the entire test look easy creates questions. That does not automatically mean anything illegal happened. Formula One teams spend enormous amounts of time finding performance that rivals have not yet understood. Sometimes a sudden advantage is simply the result of better development, better setup, or a driver delivering at exactly the right moment. But rival teams do not survive by assuming everything is normal. They look closer. They compare details. And when one team appears to control several important areas at once, attention grows very quickly. For McLaren, that attention was already intense. Every strong result increased the pressure. Every step forward changed the way competitors viewed them. They were no longer being treated as an occasional threat. They were beginning to look like a team capable of shaping the championship itself. And that creates a very different atmosphere. When a midfield team improves, people celebrate the surprise. When a front-running team suddenly appears dominant, people search for the reason. That difference matters, because Formula One is not only a battle on the track. It is also a battle of interpretation. Every rival wants to know whether the advantage comes from something they can copy, something they can protest, or something they may already have misunderstood. And Hungary added another layer. This was a circuit where confidence matters almost as much as speed. One small balance problem can follow a driver through an entire sequence of corners. One tire issue can force a team to change its plan. One moment in traffic can destroy the advantage built over several laps. Yet Norris emerged from that pressure with the result everyone was talking about. That is why the win became more than a win. It became evidence. Not proof of wrongdoing, but evidence that McLaren had reached a level their rivals could no longer ignore. And once that happens, the questions begin to change. People stop asking whether the team is fast. They start asking why it is so fast. They stop asking whether the driver can win. They start asking whether the advantage will remain at the next race, and the race after that. Most importantly, they start searching for the one detail that could explain everything. Because in Formula One, the largest controversies often begin with something that looks completely ordinary. A floor shape. A flexible component. A tire behavior pattern. A cooling solution. A setup direction that suddenly unlocks performance. The attached source does not identify which specific area, if any, is under examination, so no single technical explanation can be treated as confirmed. But the pressure surrounding McLaren makes the central question impossible to avoid. Was Hungary simply the perfect combination of driver, car, and strategy? Or did the race reveal an advantage that the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile now believes deserves a closer look? That question is where the real conflict begins. Because the moment an investigation enters the conversation, every previous result starts to look different. And the next clue does not come from the win itself. It comes from the reaction that followed. The reaction after Hungary mattered because Formula One teams rarely accuse each other directly without evidence. Instead, they watch. They compare. They ask carefully worded questions, and they wait to see whether the governing body notices the same pattern. That is how many of the sport's biggest technical battles begin. Not with a dramatic announcement, but with suspicion spreading quietly through the paddock. One engineer notices how stable a rival car looks through a difficult corner. Another studies how long its tires remain competitive. A team compares onboard footage, race pace, and car behavior, searching for something that does not match its own calculations. Then the questions begin. The attached material does not provide a confirmed statement from the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, McLaren, Norris, or any rival team about a specific technical investigation. That distinction is critical. An inspection is not the same as an accusation. A question is not the same as proof. And a dominant performance does not automatically mean a team has broken the rules. Every Formula One car is inspected throughout a race weekend. Components can be measured, tested, and examined after the finish. Sometimes that process is routine. Sometimes officials are responding to a concern. From the outside, those two situations can look almost identical. And that uncertainty creates the perfect environment for rumors. Because once people hear the word investigation, they often imagine that something illegal has already been discovered. But the truth can be far less dramatic. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile may examine a car simply because it performed exceptionally well. Officials may want to confirm that a new idea remains within the regulations. They may inspect a part selected through normal checks, without suspecting any wrongdoing at all. Yet for McLaren, even a routine examination would carry enormous pressure. The team's success has changed expectations. A strong weekend is no longer treated as a pleasant surprise. It is analyzed like evidence in a much larger case. Was the performance created by tire management? Was it the car's balance through medium-speed corners? Was Norris simply operating at a level his rivals could not match? Or had McLaren discovered a technical direction that others had not yet understood? That last possibility is the one every rival fears most. Because an illegal advantage can be challenged. A legal advantage is far more dangerous. Imagine two students building the same model using the same box of parts. One follows the obvious instructions. The other finds a smarter way to connect everything, without breaking a single rule. The second model works better. The first student can complain, but the design is still legal. That is Formula One at its most ruthless. The regulations are not only a list of things teams cannot do. They are also a map filled with narrow spaces where clever engineers search for performance. The best ideas often live close to the edge. Not beyond it. Close to it. And when one team finds that edge before everyone else, the rest of the grid has only a few choices. Copy the idea. Ask the governing body to clarify the rule. Or try to prove that the design has crossed the line. This is where the language surrounding McLaren becomes so important. If the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile is merely conducting standard checks, then the attention may mean very little. But if officials are studying one specific area because of concerns raised after Hungary, the story becomes much more serious. Not because guilt has been established. Because the question itself could force changes. A technical clarification can be enough to alter a championship. The governing body does not always need to declare a car illegal. It can issue new guidance explaining how an existing rule must be interpreted. A design that appeared acceptable one weekend may need to be changed before the next. That sounds like a small administrative detail. It is not. A Formula One car is a connected system. Change one part, and several other areas can lose performance. Think of a table with 4 perfectly balanced legs. Shorten one leg by a small amount, and the whole surface begins to move. The same principle applies to a racing car. A change designed to satisfy one regulation can affect balance, tire temperatures, straight-line speed, cornering confidence, and strategy. That is why rival teams pay such close attention to investigations, protests, and technical directives. They are not only watching for penalties. They are watching for weakness. If McLaren were forced to adjust any important part of its car, the consequences could extend far beyond one race result. Norris could lose the confidence that allowed him to attack certain corners. The engineers could be pushed toward a less effective setup. The team could begin a race weekend by solving a problem instead of improving the car. And suddenly, dominance becomes vulnerability. But there is another possibility. One that would worry McLaren's rivals even more. What if the car passes every examination? What if the questions lead nowhere? What if the performance in Hungary was completely legal, completely understood by McLaren, and only the beginning of what the team can produce? Then the investigation would not weaken the victory. It would strengthen it. Because every inspection passed would remove another explanation rivals could use to comfort themselves. They could no longer assume that the advantage would disappear through regulation. They would have to accept that McLaren had simply built a better package for the conditions, and that Norris had extracted more from it than anyone expected. That would shift the pressure away from McLaren and place it directly onto every team chasing them. But before that conclusion can be reached, one question must be answered. What exactly made the Hungarian performance look so different? Was it one spectacular technical advantage? Or was McLaren's dominance created by several smaller strengths working together so perfectly that the result looked suspicious from the outside? That difference changes everything. Because one advantage can be removed, a complete system is much harder to stop. And this is where the entire story becomes more dangerous for McLaren's rivals. Because Formula One dominance rarely comes from one magical part. It usually comes from several small advantages working together. A car that protects its tires slightly better. A setup that gives the driver more confidence. A strategy team that reacts faster. A driver who understands exactly when to push and when to wait. Each advantage may look small on its own, but when they connect, the result can feel overwhelming. That may be the most important clue behind Norris's performance in Hungary. The victory was not necessarily created by one dramatic moment. It may have been built quietly, across the entire race. One controlled lap. One clean decision. One tire-saving phase. One perfectly timed attack. Then another. And another. Until the gap between McLaren and everyone else no longer looked accidental. But here is the problem. When a team appears strong in several areas at the same time, rivals cannot easily identify what to challenge. They may suspect the floor. They may question how the car behaves under load. They may study tire temperatures, cornering balance, or straight-line efficiency. But unless one clear weakness appears, they are chasing shadows. And that is exactly what makes a complete package so difficult to defeat. Think of a locked door. If there is one lock, you know where to focus. But if the door is protected by several different systems, removing one may not change anything. That is what McLaren's rivals could now be facing. Even if one element of the car receives extra attention, the overall performance may remain. The reason is simple. Modern Formula One cars are not built around isolated tricks. They are built around connections. The front of the car affects the middle. The middle affects the rear. The aerodynamic balance affects the tires. The tires affect the driver's confidence. The driver's confidence affects every braking point, every corner entry, and every decision under pressure. One small improvement can travel through the entire car. And one small problem can do exactly the same thing in reverse. That is why any official examination matters, even before there is a confirmed finding. McLaren must continue preparing for the next race while knowing that every detail may be studied. The engineers cannot panic. The drivers cannot become distracted. The strategy team cannot allow outside pressure to change how it operates. Because once a team begins defending itself emotionally, it can lose focus competitively. And that may be the real opportunity for McLaren's rivals. Not proving that the car is illegal. Creating enough uncertainty to disturb the team's momentum. Formula One championships are not only won through speed. They are won through stability. The fastest team must still make calm decisions. The leading driver must still trust the car. The engineers must still believe that the direction they chose is the right one. If doubt enters that system, performance can begin to disappear before any physical part has changed. That sounds psychological. It is. But psychology in Formula One has real consequences. A driver who doubts the rear of the car may brake earlier. An engineer who fears a regulation change may choose a safer setup. A strategy team under pressure may avoid a bold decision that would normally win the race.